Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back to my channel, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, with you again today. Alright, so I'm going to do a small video on the full moon, blood moon, total lunar eclipse coming up on the 31st of January, just at the end of this month. Now, I'm going to talk about it from an astrological perspective, and I'm going to incorporate my own energetic, spiritual understanding of the energies as well. So there'll be a blend of the two coming through as I discuss these energies. First of all, where I'd like to begin is just revising on the series of eclipses that we've had since last year. The very big one that we had in August, the solar eclipse, that is, which was an incredible, spectacular visual phenomena that a lot of people in America were very privileged to see. Now, that solar eclipse, as we know, was in the sign of Leo. And a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse simply are a phenomenon in the heavens, which obviously involves the sun and the moon and what we call the moon's nodes, Rahu and Ketu in Vedic astrology. So without the nodes, there is no eclipse, period. You know, so we have a new moon and a full moon every month, right? So we don't have a solar eclipse or a total lunar eclipse every month, do we? That's because the nodes are not always intersecting with the Earth and the sun and the moon every single month. They're only doing this a couple of times a year, or a few times a year. So since May last year, the nodes have been moving. The nodes actually move backwards in the zodiac, as opposed to the rest of the planets, which appear to be moving forward in the zodiac, so from Aries to Taurus, Gemini, etc. The moon's nodes move backwards. Now, in May last year, they entered the signs of Leo and Aquarius, which has been the energy that we've actually been working with since last year, as the moon's nodes have been in these two signs moving backwards. So we're by the end of this month, the moon's nodes would have reached going backwards in Leo and Aquarius, around about 11-12 degrees of those signs. So the nodes will actually change signs into Cancer and Capricorn in November of 2018 of this year. So from you could say actually from early August last year, 2017, right up until November of this year, we're essentially working with the Aquarius-Leo energy through the moon's nodes and the lunar and solar eclipses that have occurred and are going to occur again. Now, this month, we've had two full moons. One was at the beginning of the month, and the next one will be on the 31st of January, which is a total lunar eclipse and is visible from certain parts of the Earth plane. And you know, that information you can actually just Google and get online and find out whether your location has that opportunity to see the lunar eclipse. Okay, so if you know, we're talking about a pretty long period here. We're talking about, you know, 12, 13 months around there of, you could even say longer. You could say 18 months or more, because it is said that the energy of eclipses doesn't begin on the date of the eclipse necessarily. Now, you know, different astrologers have different views on that and use different orbs in terms of time, in terms of days, weeks, or months. Anyway, look, we can just say that, you know, the series of these eclipses, or the family of these eclipses, have been effective since last year in August, and will see us right through till November this year. And so we had a lunar eclipse last year in August, on the 7th of August. That was a partial lunar eclipse, which was in the sign of Aquarius. And on the 21st of August, the big one, as we all know, the solar eclipse in Leo. That was last year. So this year, 31st of Jan, we're going to have the full moon total lunar eclipse in Leo. And then on the 15th of February next month, we're going to have a partial solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius. So there you go, where you can see through these eclipses, solar and lunar, that we're dealing with this Aquarian Leo energy. Now, what does Aquarius and Leo represent? Most of us know, you know, what those archetypal energies represent. And to me, from a more just trying to find the right word, from a level where many are operating on a higher frequency, let's say, these energies of the Aquarius Leo archetypal energies will manifest and be experienced in a very different way to perhaps, let's say, people who are operating at a lower level of frequency or understanding, or, you know, level that they're in their own life. So, but I mean, very simply put, the archetypal energy of Leo rules the heart. So in essence, what we're actually talking about is heart energy, period. You know, we can bring in the various facets that Leo encapsulates in terms of the characteristics of Leo, and that, you know, there are many. But I think that from a higher level, from a higher vibrating frequency, then what we are really talking about here is the heart energy. And I think that's really, really important, because when we look at the state of the world from one perspective, it is very, very clear, to me at least, and I'm sure to many of you as well, that one of the greatest issues and problems for humanity is that they have lost that connection with the heart center, you know, with the essence of the heart, which is that beautiful, unconditional, divine love. Now, we don't often think of the sign Leo as, you know, divine love, but I'm just extending some words here to help us kind of understand the Leo energy from a higher frequency level, because from a higher frequency level, Leo is about the heart center, and, you know, having that sense of an open heart with unconditional love and respect and reverence for all of life, for all of human life, and for anything else that is living and breathing, right down to an ant. From a, you know, a majestic elephant to a tiny, you know, baby little ant that doesn't even get noticed. So every living, breathing being and sentient being is important and is made of love, you know. So why am I pointing to this? I'm pointing to this because if we can recognize and identify that it's the heart connection that a lot of people have lost, which has resulted to a lot of behaviors in the world that do create, you know, violence and really dysfunctional behaviors, that only bring about more suffering to humanity collectively. You know, a lot of people still think and believe that I can't change, you know, what's happening out there, so the problems are too big, so why should I even bother? That that exact state of mind and that way of perceiving and thinking is the very reason that a lot of what we see and a lot of what is happening isn't changing as fast as it actually should be. Although in some ways it is, because on an energetic level, for all the souls on the planet that are actually consciously working energetically every single day, their work is actually raising the vibration of this earth plane, of this beloved earth, Gaia, Mother Earth, that we actually are privileged to be living in or on. So, you know, Leo, heart energy. This lost connection with the heart is also very, very clearly seen when we look at the state of the world in terms of, so we have two mental bodies. We have a lower mental body and we have a higher mental body. So the lower is ruled by Mercury and the higher is ruled by Uranus, according to EA, which is evolutionary astrology, and I feel that that particular perception is correct. So, you know, the lower level of Mercury is that that chaotic mind, the dysfunction in the mind, the disconnection from the heart, because people are operating from the mental sphere, the mental conceptual sphere, which is also associated with the lower chakras in our body. Now, for a very long time, we thought we essentially had 7 chakras, but in fact, we now know that we have a 12-system chakra in all of us, which can be activated, you know, once we understand what this 12 chakra system is, how we can activate it, and, you know, what we need to do to activate it. And, you know, that doesn't come just by simply saying, I want my 12 chakras activated. That requires discipline, commitment, and daily practice, and cleaning, you know, cleaning all of our bodies, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, etheric, astral, and all our spiritual bodies. So if we are operating from that mundane, lower mercurial level, we are basically caught up in the mind, which I like to call the monkey mind. It's like that wild monkey in the jungle that is just all over the place. That's what happens to our mind. There's this stream of mental conceptual ideas and thoughts, and a lot of people are very lost in that. Why? Because in fact, we don't actually have control over our thoughts, and sometimes this is misleading for people, because people who have not practiced meditation, for example, now there are many different ways of practicing meditation, many different styles, many different approaches, but the goal that I think is similar or the same or typical in possibly every single style is that the goal and the aim is to connect to the space but in between the thoughts, and connect to a space that is actually almost pre-thought, in the sense where you are the observer of the thoughts as opposed to identifying with the thoughts. The Eckhart Tolle is the one that has actually made this really clear in his work. He's a spiritual author and writer. Many of you would know who he is. He's an Aquarian, by the way. Anyway, so he makes a very clear point when he says that the problem is not the thinking. It's not the actual thoughts that are coming in, because thoughts just appear. They just come in. We don't know where they come from. Do you know what your next thought is going to be? If I asked you right now, what is your next thought going to be? You won't have the answer to that. You couldn't possibly have the answer, because a thought will just arise. So thoughts rise and they set, they rise and they set. Now, that's fine. That's the nature of the mind. The problem is the identification that we actually attach to a particular thought. That is what creates the suffering and the complexities and the attachments. And instead of observing a thought, a person will embody it, become the thought as it were, because they're not observing it as something separate. The thought comes in and there's no awareness there, let's say, at worst case scenario, there's no awareness there in the person to identify, oh, hang on, that thought has just come into my stream. Now, what do I do with this thought? Do I just watch it come through and watch it exit, because that's what it will do? Or do I give it a bit more attention because this thought is actually quite important? So, some thoughts are quite important, clearly, but there are a lot of thoughts that are not. They simply don't deserve the amount of attention that one gives them, particularly if they are false thoughts, and thoughts that create disempowerment, and thoughts that don't really have truth in them inherently. So this is the problem with losing touch with our heart energy, which is Leo, and over-identifying with the conceptual sphere, which is the lower mind Mercury. And that's the lower mind Mercury operating at one could say, a dysfunctional level. So that's how I'm kind of viewing this lunar eclipse, that, as I said, has followed through from eclipses that took place last year, which were again in the signs of Aquarius, Leo. So we have, Leo, well, let's just actually clarify. So the full moon, as we know, is always the sun and the moon opposite each other, which hence why a full moon is about illumination. So, when a full moon arrives, it's bringing with it energy that has been kind of working internally or underneath or behind the scenes, if you like, because solar eclipses, which is a new moon, it is a dark moon. You cannot see anything. And solar eclipses are masculine, and they generally produce external changes, challenges, crises, etc. The lunar eclipse is it's the moon. So we're talking about the divine feminine, the feminine principle, illuminating, bringing forth and shining light to this beautiful divine feminine quality and energy. So even though the moon is going to be in the sign of Leo, which is a masculine fixed sign, fixed in quality, it's a fire sign, and it's masculine according to its position. So as the full moon arrives, it does bring to light a lot of the work that we have been doing, you could say, even in the last 6 months or so. So the opposite sign of Leo, which is Aquarius, brings in the element of, I believe, or I feel, it's that humanitarian collective love. It's like we're an entire family on this planet. We're one big family, and that's the Aquarian energy or archetypal energy. Apart from it being futuristic and unusual and different and creative and innovative, and all those other things, I just want to bring it back to the main sort of essence of what this full moon eclipse is really bringing to light. So Leo, heart center. It's, there's a call for each of us to open our heart, to connect to our heart, to get back to that core love essence and energy within us, because we've just been way too busy up here in the mental, conceptual sphere. And as a result, as I said, there is a lot of damage that's happened out there in the world. It's been going on for a long time. We all know that. But there is a lot changing. Humanity is waking up. It's waking up at quite an accelerated process. For some, this may not be obvious. For many, it is, particularly those that are working from a higher vibrational frequency and that are consciously working on bringing more light onto the earth and to all the souls that are inhabiting this earth. So the Aquarian component really highlights for me the humanitarian quality of how we all need to come together as a soul family. There needs to be this collective union of divine love and light, just pouring in, pouring in, pouring in. According to certain people who work very specifically with ascension processes and, the whole vibrational frequency of elevating that within us and doing that for the earth and for every soul on the earth. 2012 was one of the most powerful passageways that opened so much for each of us to be able to access energetically and spiritually. But you cannot bring something in or connect to it or bring it in, down, up through the higher chakras, so the stellar gateway, for instance, which I now know is somewhere up here, to bring these energies through and in through all of our chakra centers and ground them at the what's called the Earth Star chakra. We need to work on these things consciously. Working on these energetic spheres that we all are a part of enables this humanitarian Aquarian quality to be even stronger. It's the Aquarius is the sign of true awareness. It has such clarity and such vision. It has tremendous vision. Now, sometimes the picture that we see for Aquarius is the water bearer, and that has created confusion for people thinking that Aquarius is a water sign. Aquarius is not a water sign, it's an air sign, and the water bearer that's sort of spilling over the water, as it were, is actually it's fire, it's spiritual energy. And Aquarius is a sign of the mind and the intellect, but at a much higher level. Its ruler is Uranus, its ruler is Saturn as well, but its secondary ruler is Uranus. So, we're talking about the higher mind. Uranus rules the higher mind. So, this energy that we're all collectively working with is, in terms of what's been happening, since last year and what's unfolding this year through the Leo-Aquarius archetypes, it's, those two signs are opposite each other, clearly, we know that, but oppositions, they are each other's shadow, they complement each other. One doesn't exist without the other. So when we apply that kind of thinking simply just to Leo and Aquarius, what we're looking at is Leo, the heart of all of us personally and individually, the heart work that we're doing on ourselves. Because don't forget, what we're carrying in our heart and in all our bodies, in our DNA, in our blood and everything, is not just from this incarnation, the one that you are breathing in at the moment. We are all holding and carrying, to varying degrees, a number of different experiences and memories and skills and talents and traumas and fears, and the stream is endless. So we're quite complex, really, aren't we? So if that is true, if we are carrying all this, then wouldn't it make sense that we would need to, in the time that we have arrived in history now, in life now, where we have this incredible ability for awareness, incredible ability for insight, access to everything at our fingertips. 20 years ago, I don't know, however long it was, we didn't have mobile phones and things like that, did we? You couldn't FaceTime, you couldn't call people for free. Life was very different, we know. So anyway, look, technology, has its downsides too. We all know that for sure. But it also has tremendous potential. And the key component with that is obviously to bring in, a good Virgo energy and discriminate, because Virgo discriminates what's rubbish and what sustains us. And that's what it actually does internally in our body with the intestines. So it's that part of the body that actually discriminates. When you eat and you swallow and that food goes inside you, what do you think's happening with that? It's not you that says, okay, I'm going to keep this part of that food over there and I'm going to put it over there because that's really good for protein, and I'm going to discard that because it's absolute junk for my body. Your body just does that. It's actually Virgo that does that through the intestines. This is why Virgo is a sign of discrimination. It discriminates what needs to go or what needs to stay. So, getting back to the lunar eclipse. Okay, now, the full moon and the new moon, which happens every month, are really powerful energetic times anyway. We know that, during a new moon, we may want to begin something new. During a full moon, we tend to possibly, reap some of the benefits or rewards, or see some of the fruit of what we've begun during the new moon. So there's potential for growth and illumination and new beginnings. Always, every single month we have this. But when we're having a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, the energies are intensified, they are much more powerful. And, it really does depend as well on how conscious one is. Now, this lunar eclipse will come and go, and for many people, it may not appear to produce very much. But the question I would have for those people is, well, how in touch are you with your heart? Because in this case, we're talking about Leo. Do you check in with your heart on a daily basis to see how your heart is feeling, to see what you are connecting with? Is your heart open? What are you doing with your heart energy? These are really important, just really important attention that we need to pay to our heart energy. So the lunar eclipse, really just, it's such an intensified, feminine, divine feminine, beautiful energy. If one is not in touch with their heart, or in touch with the feminine, lunar component of themselves and their life, then it doesn't surprise me that people will experience this full moon and not much has happened in their life. So it appears. We just need to remember that, the way life is breathing us, and moving, and this ebb and flow, this constant movement that has certain appearances out there in the physical world. That is just one component of the entirety, which cannot even actually be measured, of what is actually going on within ourselves and within the collective. So there is a lot going on many different levels, and certainly when we are more in tune with our own selves to begin with, and in touch with our emotional body, in touch with our higher mental body, in touch with our spiritual bodies, working with our 12 chakra system. When we're doing this kind of work, working with crystals, meditating, praying, whatever you want to call it, we are a lot more receptive to a beautiful phenomenon like a total lunar eclipse. We can equally be non-receptive if we are out of touch with these elements of life that require a sense of, dedication, discipline, attention, an open heart, and an understanding that not everything is as it appears. Not everything you see out there is everything. There is so much going on. So I just want to try and start personalizing this a bit more, because I've kind of gone off track with the whole spiritual dimension of things, but I guess that's where I'm really resonating in my own life at the moment, and that's how I'm working with these energies, hence why this is pouring through. I'm not even thinking about it, it's just pouring through. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about some of the aspects that this full moon has. Now, the South Node is conjunct Venus and Juno, which are in the signs of Aquarius, and the North Node is conjunct the Moon and Ceres, which are both at 11 degrees of Leo. There's an exact conjunction with this full moon in Leo and Ceres. That's pretty significant to me. Now, Ceres is a beautiful, divine, feminine energy that we all have in our birth chart. So she represents different things in our birth chart depending on her location, etc. But I think that the importance of her being up there with the lunar eclipse, there's a strong message there about the earth, about Mother Earth, because Ceres connects to things like agriculture and the earth and so forth, and nurturance, the whole principle of nurturance, or the lack of nurturance, is what Ceres represents. So the most primal, you could say, nurturance from the physical perspective is food, isn't it? Because without food, we would starve to death. That's a fact. So Ceres can bring up a lot of complexes around the issues of nurturance. Now, I would extend that and expand on that and say it is a nurturing principle that is requiring a lot of attention through this full moon energy. But because it's in Leo, to me, that's actually saying, are we nurturing our heart center? Are we nurturing our heart energy? And are we nurturing the heart of the people we love? Are we nurturing those that we love? Are we, to extend that further, are we nurturing this collective humanitarian heart that we all are a part of? What are we doing to actually connect us from that heart level collectively? This is what I think this moon series in Leo is highlighting. It's bringing our attention to the absolute primal, its massive importance on the heart center, because it is the heart center that has the ability and capacity to heal everything. Everything. But how can it do that if we are not vibrating on that level and connecting with our heart center? And if we are not operating from our heart, and we're operating from up here, the lower mind, Mercury, which is ideas, which has its place, has its purpose, but it also is what divides us. You know, division is brought about through someone's belief or idea about X, Y, Z. So, you know, I believe that this is correct and what you're saying is incorrect, therefore we are instantly divided. You see, so that's the whole mental Mercury stuff. And this is the very thing that we need to start, not only start, we should have started this a long time ago, if some are not, but we all need to take responsibility and have awareness around, you know, this whole division that's created collectively. And we need to start bringing each other closer and closer on that Aquarian, humanitarian, collective level where we are all one soul family. So that's what the Ceres moon in Leo to me is saying. It's let's nurture our heart personally, because if we don't nurture our own heart personally, we cannot give love to anybody else anyway. Okay? Everything starts from within you and from within me. That's just how it is. So to change things out there, we need to address things in here and up here. So that's Moon Ceres. Now, the Sun, which is conjunct the South Node, of course, and conjunct Venus and conjunct Juno, is bringing in more divine feminine energy. Venus, the feminine. Juno is also feminine. You know, she was the wife of Zeus, also known as Hera. So I think, you know, with Venus and Juno there conjunct the South Node, that's suggesting to me that relationships and commitments and partnerships